New Mexico Environment Department Secretary James Kenney has been at his state job since the beginning of the year, but before that, he worked for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for 20 years. He was educated as an engineer, study that served him well as he deals with PFAS, which are toxic man-made chemicals found in groundwater, surface water, and biological systems near Holloman and Cannon Air Force bases. NMIF environmental correspondent Laura Paskus spoke with Mr. Kenney about the challenge this week.
Secretary James Kenney, thanks for joining us on New Mexico in Focus today. The New Mexico Environment Department handles lots of different issues all across the state, but today we're talking about PFAS, toxic human-made chemicals that the military has found at its bases across the nation and across the world, including here in New Mexico at Holloman and Cannon Air Force bases. Can you kind of just explain to us what PFAS is and why it's a problem?
Sure, and thank you for having me today. So PFAS, which we can use the acronym, but it stands for per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, which is a mouthful. But those substances are chemicals that are man-made that have been used since about the 1950s or 60s in a number of applications. And most commonly, people will encounter them and know them from things like Teflon, Scotchgard, those types of products. Many of our hiking equipment that we so love in New Mexico to get outdoors that is waterproof or water resistant has those chemicals in it. And they're used to repel and prevent sticking. So even your non-stick pans over the years have been made with PFAS chemicals. So they repel water, they repel any kind of chemicals or goo that you might get. I think of tree sap and things like that from hiking. But they repel that, and when they get into the environment, those chemicals also do the same thing. They sit on top of our groundwater. They sit in surface waters. They don't mix very well because they're resistant to water. So that's when they get into the environment that they're persistent, and that's a word we often use to talk about PFAS.
And so what are some of the health problems that are associated with them?
So broadly speaking, some of the health problems, when PFAS gets into you, it bioaccumulates or stays in you for a long period of time. And when it's in you for a while and it doesn't break down, that's when the health effects start to manifest. And these are documented and studied health impacts. Things like increased levels of cholesterol. So that may be something that somebody who's been exposed to PFAS would experience, as well as a number of cancers can be caused by PFAS exposure. And then there's a lot of developmental issues in terms of low infant birth weights and just developmental issues in children who are exposed at a young age. So it's a full range of health impacts.
So the problems at Cannon Air Force Base were kind of found before you became secretary, but I was wondering if we could start with Cannon Air Force Base and what you have learned has happened there, is happening there, and what the problems are with PFAS.
Sure. So another use of PFAS chemicals is what we call aqueous firefighting foams, or AFFF, as people refer to them as. And those foams are used for fire suppression and fire mitigation. So it's not uncommon to see those foams being used at places like military installations. They were used for a number of years, and through the management of those chemicals, through training exercises, or through real fires that needed to be suppressed, those foams got into the environment and moved into the groundwater. So it was about a few months before I became cabinet secretary that the Air Force had told the New Mexico Environment Department, after some years of studying, that these foams were found in the groundwater. Since I became secretary, we've taken a very aggressive approach to make sure that those foams or that the impacts from the use of those foams are being managed properly and not impacting residents, the ag industry, groundwater, et cetera.
So what kinds of levels are we looking at Cannon?
So we've done a number of sampling events in the area, sampling both public water supplies, private well waters, and the groundwater itself. And what we're seeing is that in the public water supply, we're not getting detects of those chemicals. In private water supplies, we are seeing some detects, and then in the groundwater itself, we've seen some astronomically high numbers. Numbers where the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency action level is 70 parts per trillion. So just know 70 is kind of the number that we're working to compare to. Some of those numbers that we're seeing in the groundwater are in the thousands, hundreds of thousands times that level. So very high levels in the groundwater itself.
So were people drinking that water, or were animals drinking that water? Who's been exposed to that?
So that's a great question, and one we get a lot. And there's likely been exposure in the past. What we're trying to do now is identify what are the possible exposure pathways, and that's why we're sampling both the public water and private well water. And we're doing that as the state of New Mexico. Ideally, that should be done by the responsible party. In this case, it would be the U.S. Air Force. So the contamination has migrated from the groundwater into drinking water sources, and that's what we're trying to mitigate against.
And how do you do that? Like, for example, there were media reports earlier this year about a dairy owner who had to euthanize his entire dairy herd of like 4,000 cows. Kind of how are we mitigating some of these problems?
So the difference is that in some instances the Air Force, if the water has been used for human consumption, the Air Force has put in some interim measures. In the instance where the water is being used for the agricultural industry, the agricultural industry has had to step up and incur those costs to put in those interim measures. Interim measures are things like filters, ways in which you can remove the PFAS chemicals before they get into the cow or into the person, for that matter. And those are expensive, and those are things that we feel as though the Air Force should take responsibility and work with the ag industry to make sure that the water that is used for New Mexico's ag production is safe as well. I should add that separately, we are working across our cabinet agencies, the Department of Ag, Department of Health, as well as our department, to have a comprehensive approach. And we are working with the ag industry to do some periodic sampling to make sure that the PFAS is not getting into their irrigation water.
Okay. And then in Alamogordo with Holloman Air Force Base, that's a little bit of a different situation, or what's happening there?
Yeah, so once we found out that there was these foams or PFAS contamination in Clovis, we also looked at what the sample results showed us in Holloman, and the numbers are again astronomically high. One of the key differences is that there's Lake Holloman, which is a surface water body, and that lake is predominantly fed by the Holloman Air Force Base wastewater. So the base wastewater becomes the feed water for that lake, and therefore it has high levels of PFAS as well in it as well. So you have surface water contamination as well as groundwater contamination at Holloman Air Force Base. A key difference is that the groundwater around Holloman is brackish, meaning it's salty. The water by Clovis, the groundwater in Clovis, is more fresh water. But our regulations don't distinguish between water that's usable for drinking today and water that's usable for drinking tomorrow, meaning if we desalinated that water, it'd be fresh water. So we are protecting both groundwater in Holloman and Cannon from PFAS contamination.
Okay. And how has the military responded? How are the state and the military working together, or what's happening there?
Yeah, and I think the easiest answer to that question is, if we were working productively, we wouldn't be involved in litigation. So soon after I became cabinet secretary and we moved into looking at how are we going to manage this situation, our first instinct is not to litigate. Our first instinct is to get controls on the ground, or to start making the situation right as quickly as possible. Without getting into all the details as to why we litigated, I think it's quite obvious that if we're not getting the results in the time frame in which New Mexicans should expect the results, we're going to litigate. And that's what we did in both of these instances. Most recently, we filed a preliminary injunction, basically compelling the Air Force to do something. And that's where we are as of today. And we hope to see some action start soon, so that the plume is managed, the underground plume of PFAS in the groundwater is managed, and that we know we're protecting those drinking water wells, those private water wells, and the cows and ag industry.
This summer, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham asked the EPA for some assistance, and the EPA responded, I believe, that they could not help in the ways that she was asking. Can you talk about that a little bit, and the EPA's role in all of this?
Sure. EPA is in the process of coming up with national drinking water standards, and those standards should be, I believe the horizon for those coming out is sometime this fall at the earliest. We've asked for EPA's assistance in a legal and technical way with helping to bring the Air Force to the table and hold them accountable for what's happening here in New Mexico. Unfortunately, the Environmental Protection Agency has said that they are not able to help us in a legal way. And as a former Environmental Protection Agency employee who had been there for 20 years, I would disagree with that, and have had experience where EPA has gotten involved within those federal to federal agency litigation. It's happened over 300 times under the hazardous waste regulations by which we're bringing our case. So despite EPA not willing to come in and assist New Mexico in a legal manner, they have offered some technical assistance, things like assisting us with groundwater modeling, and we're working towards that now. Modeling the theoretical where the plume is going is helpful, but showing up in Clovis, showing up in Alamogordo, and talking to the community, discussing risk, helping with sampling, installing filters, those are the things we really need help on now, because, as I've said many times, the Air Force isn't stepping up to do those things.
And as we're wrapping up, what would you like people to understand who've maybe heard about this issue and are either worried or don't understand what's happening? Like, what would you like people to understand about what's happening and about the role that your department plays?
So that's a great question, and this is an emerging contaminant, meaning that the science is growing at the same time we're trying to solve the environmental problem. So it's not that we have a body of science that says, here's everything we know, now go out and make your regulations. We're actually doing both at the same time, and it's happening all across the country. We in New Mexico, to our knowledge, as I know right now, the biggest contamination is caused by the U.S. Air Force, and we are working to remedy that situation. People should know that we're out there in Clovis and Alamogordo as the state. We're testing public water and private water, and folks can contact our department if they want their private well water tested. We're happy to do that. But we're out there, and we are going to remedy the situation, and the Air Force, we hope, will step up and make it right. Beyond that, we're looking at other parts of the state to see if there's a PFAS issue anywhere else, and we're working to ensure that our regulations for groundwater, surface water, and drinking water are protective, and that other states, even the federal government, will look to us as a means of one of the more aggressive states of protecting our limited water supplies.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.